Okay, this video is for Lisa, and this is how you make pie crust in your food processor. I have a Cuisinart. It's a really nice food processor. You don't need one that's that expensive. What you need is a food processor with a blade. It is the regular blade that you use for chopping. Nothing special, nothing fancy about this. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to put, you can use any recipe. I'm using one that I like. It's 2 cups of flour. So I'm going to put 2 cups of flour in here. It's really important when you enter your dry ingredients to make sure that you spoon it in, level it off. I'm spooning it in over a cup that you can't quite see here, so that I don't make a huge mess. Although I'm going to flour the surface later anyhow, so it doesn't really matter. I did it anyway. So 2 cups of flour right in the Cuisinart. I'm going to turn this a little bit so you can actually see the Cuisinart. I said I was turning it. It has other ideas. There we go. So, like I said, you can use any recipe. This is just one that I like to use. 2 cups of flour right in the Cuisinart food processor. Doesn't have to be the name brand. Doesn't matter. This is just the process. Now I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of salt. Make sure that's a level teaspoon. You don't want this too salty, even if you're doing savories. Always remember to put your salt in your sweet foods. It makes them taste better. Okay. Now the next thing that I'm going to put in here is my fat. So any and all pie crust recipe is going to call for flour, sugar, flour, salt, fat, and water. I have my ice water right here. Everything should be cold, cold, cold. I'm actually going to step to the freezer and get my fats. So, this is half a stick of butter. It's cut into cubes. I'm going to put that in here, the whole half stick. And I use my fingers. It's only my family eating it. None of you have ever died from anything I've cooked for you. This is lard. Superior pie crusts come from lard. It's also frozen lard, because like I said, the colder the better. The colder you can get everything you're working with, the better your pie crust is going to turn out. There we go. Alright, so got my blade in, got my dry ingredients, got my fats. I'm going to put the lid on my Cuisinart, and you're just going to pulse this for about a count of 3 times. Let's go ahead and check it. I'm going to do a little bit more. This needs to kind of look sandy almost. And this is why I like my Cuisinart. It's really quiet. That's about right now. The one thing is, this thing's really powerful and it does fling up the flour mixture. I'm going to go ahead and show this to you so you can see inside the Cuisinart. It kind of looks like sand, not like beach sand, like other sand that you might be familiar with. Alright, so this is going to go back on here. Because you're making this in your food processor, it's going to take a lot less water than you're used to using when you make a pie crust. So I'm going to start, and I'm just going to do tablespoons of ice water at a time. I'm going to put in 3 to start with. That might actually be plenty for what I'm doing. I may have to do a little more. We're going to start with 3 in this particular recipe. Whatever recipe you're using, start with half your water. Okay, let's pulse this puppy. And I've done this a lot, so I can tell that's not going to be quite enough. But I'm going to show you what it looks like. It doesn't look very much different than when we started, but trust me, it is. This is what it looks like now. I can pinch it. It doesn't quite hold together yet. I actually want this to hold together fairly well when I pinch it together. I'm going to say this is probably only going to take about 1 more tablespoon. It might take 2. Our air is really dry today. We're down to about 17% humidity. That does affect your baking. We're going to pulse this again, just a couple of times till I get what I want. You're just trying to distribute the water evenly throughout. I'm going to check this again. Yeah, that comes together really nice. So what happens is when I've got enough water, when I reach in there and pinch, I'm actually going to get something that looks like a pie crust. A little bit more. Not ready. I'll put 1 more in there. The original recipe calls for 6 tablespoons. I will be really surprised if I need all 6. Start with half, work your way up. You don't want this to get all the way into a ball because then it'll be too wet, and when you roll it out it's going to be extremely tough and it won't taste good. Well, it might taste just fine because, you know, but oh yeah, that's what I want. So now when I pinch that together, it stays together like a pie crust. Let's see if I can get you a little better view of that. It might be a little crumbly, but by the time we get it mixed together in a bowl, see, little pie crust. All right. So the next step of this, now that I have it all mixed together, I'm going to take apart my Cuisinart. Here's my bowl. I'm going to walk over here and get my pie making bowl because I have a special bowl that I like to use. Not everybody has to do that. This is my dough bowl. I use this for bread. I use this for biscuits. I use this for pie crusts. I love this bowl. It's awesome for this. So all of this is going to go in here. Everything. And you can even scrape all the stuff out of the inside. Get everything out of here. When I say everything, I mean it. And just because we're doing this in the food processor doesn't mean we don't get to get our hands a little bit dirty. I'm also going to get as much off of my blade as I can. Don't cut your fingers. Be careful, these are sharp. And you will find that sometimes your moisture isn't as distributed. Just really want to distribute it as much as possible. Put that in the sink. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to hold the camera with one hand and show you with the other. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take this. We're trying. There we go. So we're going to take this and we're just going to mash it all together into a nice compact ball. And if we've got all of our ingredients correct, it's just going to like pull together. And this is definitely easier with 2 hands. So I'm going to put you back over here while I do this and get this all squeezed together into a ball. That's working really well. You really want to touch this as little as possible because overworking it is what's going to make it tough. You also want, if you find out it's a little too dry, it's not sticking together at this point, you can add more water. I'm not going to need it. And I'm going to blend this together. So the whole point of using that food processor, honestly, is it makes it a lot easier to cut the fat into the flour, and it gets your salt distributed evenly. Some pie crusts call for sugar. It's also going to distribute the sugar through it more evenly. You'll just get a nicer texture. You're going to get a nicer flavor. All right, almost done here. I could show you what I'm working in, but so there is my nice tight little dough ball. I'll show you a picture of that in just a second. So there it is. That's going to be enough for a double pie crust, believe it or not. When I roll it out, it's going to be pretty thin, but when I roll that out, I'll get an upper and a lower pie crust out of this guy. And that's it. So I'm going to take this ball of dough, I'm going to wrap this in plastic. I'm going to put it in the fridge for about a half hour. Again, everything cold. It works better cold. And then I'll be ready to roll it out and use it for whatever I want to use it for. So 11 minutes to pie crust, not so bad. That means I can make pot pie every evening for dinner if I want to, even if I've worked all day. See you guys.